Good evening, everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with CNN News 18. You're watching Brass Tacks with me, Shivani Gupta. There is a substantial cut in the central excise duty that has come in for both petrol and diesel by the central government. And will that now be followed by the states? Is a big debate coming up. But before that, I just want to highlight the kind of relief in actual money that it will be for the common public that, of course, was reeling, not just under the high prices of fuel, but correlation of all of that with higher inflation. So this is the rate card as far as the national capital is concerned. It usually has the lowest prices of most metros. So from 105, it will now be 95 rupees some paisa for petrol. From nearly 100 rupees for diesel per litre, it will be about 92 rupees in the national capital. Let's take a look at Mumbai. Mumbai also virtually the same as far as petrol and diesel prices are concerned. The new rates will be around 95 rupees and 92 rupees respectively. Let's take a look at Chennai, the other metro. The prices are a little bit higher here. 110 currently for petrol, so that will come to about 111, 101. And diesel is all over 100 rupees. That will drop to 93.94 rupees per litre. Kolkata, the prices are high, at least of petrol here as well. So the new rates will be still over 100 for petrol, 105.62 rupees per litre, while diesel will come down to under 93 rupees. We've also been speaking to a lot of the public in various states. While they're welcoming the move, they are hoping that state governments will also reciprocate. Listen in.
बहुत राहत महसूस कर रहे हैं जी। 9.5-10 रुपए गरीब बंदे से पूछो बहुत होते हैं।
सर ये बहुत बढ़िया हो रहा है, बहुत ज़्यादा परेशानी हो रही थी इसकी वजह से। बिल्कुल मैं तो मोदी गवर्नमेंट का तहे दिले धन्यवाद करना चाहूँगी जो उन्होंने ये स्टेप लिया। अच्छा फील हो रहा है, जनता के लिए काफ़ी गुड न्यूज़ है जो 9.5 रुपया लेस हो रहा है। बहुत अच्छी, बहुत स्वागत योग्य कदम है ये सरकार की, ऐसे जनता को कुछ न कुछ राहत पहुँचेगा। बहुत अच्छी बात है, बहुत खुशी की बात है।
First up, I also want to go across to Nityanand Rai, MOS Home, joining us exclusively here on the bulletin. Mr. Rai, the central government has finally bitten the bullet. This is, of course, being welcomed by the public, but the opposition is not happy still. They're saying this is too little, too late.
माननीय
Sir? Mr. Rai, can you hear me? Mr. Rai?
कर रहे हैं और हमारे प्रधानमंत्री जी जनहित में ही फैसला लेते हैं। लोग जो फैसले लिए गए हैं, जो डीजल पेट्रोल के दाम घटेंगे, गैस कनेक्शन के सिलेंडर के दाम घटेंगे, तो गैस सिलेंडर से लेकर जो भी चीजों की कीमतें घटेगी, इसका प्रभाव लोगों पर पड़ेगा। तो लोग क्या कहते थे कि डीजल पेट्रोल का दाम बढ़ा हुआ है, तो 10 तरह की बातें करते हैं। आज जब इस प्रकार और जानते हैं
Unfortunately, Mr. Rai, the line with you is not good at all, but I do thank you for joining us and giving us your take. I want to go across to the guests also who are joining us at this stage. Tom Varakan is from the BJP, Bura Narsaya Gaud is from the TRS, and Ajay Dua, former Secretary, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, is also joining us. Mr. Gaud, I'm coming to you first up. News that is still coming in just now is that Kerala has already become the first state to also bring in some cut from the state government side. Do you think that more states, especially opposition ruled states, non-BJP ruled states, should also follow? Because the centre's grievance is that last time in November when we cut the prices, the opposition ruled states did not reciprocate.
No, basically, Shivani ji, it's a good move because because of the Ukrainian war, Russia-Ukraine war, the inflation is going high and high, and also the commodities prices and daily essential prices, steel, cement, everything is going up. And I wish to say that the taxes, excise duty on the diesel and petrol is like a mother of all taxes, and it affects mostly poor and middle class.
Right.
Compared to the income tax, which affects mostly higher income bracket, this, it is like an essential item for every common man, including the cooking gas.
Right.
And reduction of the excise duty is welcome. Definitely. And second thing you have not observed, last 2-3 months, March, April, the GST collections have surpassed compared to the expectations of the government. The GST collection has 1.4 crores, 1.4 crores per month. It has surpassed. It is all-time high. And the budget estimate revenue collection is to the central government. Probably it is going to be more than 1 trillion rupees than expected or estimated.
So,
So
sir,
in
the
view of
central
all
government, in view of all of that, has given a big relief to the customers. Now, my question to you is, should state governments, especially ruled by parties like yourself, also not reciprocate? It's the responsibility of state governments also.
Ultimately, every government, whether it's a state government or a central government, is run by the public money. I don't think there is any government in the world, including India, which spend the money from their pockets or party pockets. So it is the business of management of the money is the people's give for the 4 years for any party.
Right.
Definitely now there will be a pressure on the governments of the state government. Forget about the opposition or a BJP rule. There is nothing like a Indian people. We don't have a separate people opposition.
No, I understand your point, sir. But I'm asking this question because last time in November, when the center cut the taxes, BJP ruled states followed. But the parties like yours did not follow. In Telangana, last time the rate cut was not reciprocated.
No, that's what it is. The economic management depends on the resources. And I usually say our country is mostly running on the liquid economy. That is petrol, diesel and alcohol, spirits. And entire welfare programs are capital things. And our government also will take a lead to assess the financial situation. Definitely, it becomes a moral obligation on our government also to pass on to the extent possible without hampering the state
budget
finances.
Yes.
Budget.
I understand that, sir. Let me also go across to Supriya Ashunate of the Congress party, who's also joining us. Supriya, news that is coming in is that Kerala government has also announced a cut in the state tax on petrol and diesel by 2.41 rupees and 1.36 rupees respectively. So the question naturally that I will ask you is, will Congress rule states also follow? You know the background of the centre versus state fight that has been ongoing on their respective portions of the excise on fuel. So now, with this second rate cut by the centre in 6 months, will Congress rule states also follow?
No, let me just first step back and try and analyze what has happened today. What has happened today is that the central government has reduced excise by 7 rupees on diesel and by about 9.5 rupees on every litre of petrol. Please remember, this takes prices to where they were 2 months back. In the last 2 months alone, petrol prices went up by 10 rupees and diesel prices also went up by 10 rupees. So in the last 2 months versus now, petrol and diesel will both be costlier than they were 2 months back after elections. Please also remember that the central government is making a desperate attempt to sell Ujjwala cylinders by giving 200 rupees subsidy, because if they had not, 90 lakh people had not even gone for the first refill. Who would be able to get a cylinder refilled for 1,000 rupees? I just want to simply state here that these jumlas are not going to move the needle on economic stress. And I will tell you why. The 9 rupee 48 paisa excise in 2014 went up to 28 rupees. Yes, it has now come down to 19 rupees on petrol and about 18 rupees 24 paisa on diesel. The reality is you expect the central government to not walk the talk and the state governments to do everything. VAT is an ad valorem tax. What does that mean? Ad valorem tax means it is dependent on distributor, the dealer margins, the dealer commission, and the excise duty. With excise duty going down, VAT in many states is also going to go down. The central government owes states money worth 78,000 crore rupees as GST compensation. Let them walk the talk and compensate that first. It's very easy for everybody to turn around and say, should the states not follow? Absolutely, the states want to follow suit, but the states have very limited finances to maneuver with
But
and much
Supriya,
to offer to the people.
I get what you're saying. The state governments may not be able to match the kind of cut that the central government has done. And mind you, as I said, twice in 6 months now. Yes, prices are still high. But there are, of course, global factors involved. At least they're trying to mitigate some of the stress. Now, state governments may not be able to give the same relief. But some relief, like Kerala has already announced, is that not in the offing? Should that not also be expected?
No, point taken. Let me first answer your question on global factors. I am very amused when people speak in defense, especially the government keeps citing global factors. Deregulated oil regime means that Indians should pay in accordance to what the global crude oil prices are. Prices are higher today, we will have to shell out more. But when prices went down to $20 a barrel last year, was your fuel bill reduced? Mine certainly wasn't, because the government did not take care of people then. The government kept raising excise duty and making money. Before jumping into defense of the central government, I do want to say one thing very categorically here, because these are numbers and numbers cannot be lied for.
No, sure, but we've discussed all of that. I'm talking about the today's situation.
Let me make my point. You can then jump in. 27 lakh crore rupees is what the central government alone has made. Please remember, 68% of fuel taxes go only and only in the coffers of the central government. They have made 27 lakh crore rupees. And so they have a much bigger elbow room to maneuver.
I'm accepting that. I'm saying that not the same amount, but something the state governments can contribute. Also, this question will come, Supriya, because the Congress party has been raising the issue of inflation. Now, if there are states that you are in power in, you will also have to take some of the load of that inflation, isn't it?
So, I just want to understand, for somebody who is getting 3/4 of the tax revenues from fuel sale, should take a lesser burden, and states that anyways are supposed to get 78,000 crore dues from the GST pool should go ahead and do the whole hog. I mean, let's not be so kind to the central government. Let's cut the state some slack, and I will tell you why. My last point that I want to make is, while we can go to town with saying 10 rupiya kam hua or 8 rupiya kam hua, please remember 9.5 rupees reduction is only taking petrol prices back to where they were 2 months back, and diesel also to where it was 2 months back. Actually, both prices being higher.
Okay,
so let's not lose sight of the fact this is not just fuel inflation, food inflation, vegetable inflation has crossed 23%. Wholesale price inflation at over 15%.
No, we're not denying any of that, because that is the reality. You would have seen Nirmala Sitharaman's tweet also, where she's saying, I request states to also follow suit. And just for a benefit of our viewers, the background, last time in November when the central excise cut happened, most of the BJP states did it. Many of the opposition ruled states did not do it. And then there was a meeting that was held with the Prime Minister and the Chief Ministers, where the Prime Minister raised this and did say that I'm requesting once again that states should also pass on some of the benefits. Supriya, one second. Let me first invite Tom Varakan to respond to what you have said so far.
Because you brought up the Prime Minister,
I will give you an opportunity. I will give you an opportunity. Supriya, some of our other guests have not made their opening comments. Tom Varakan, you've heard two opposition leaders. While the TRS representative is saying there will be pressure and expectation on their government to also follow suit in whatever measure they can do, the Congress is still not very happy, and they're saying that the states cannot be expected to reciprocate.
Shivani, it's very well to talk about going back to the level it was. But believe me, their former president goes to London and says, well, you know, India's economy, and he talks about all sort of various things. I dare say, can he tweet on this and tell us that, well, Pakistan is doing better than India or Sri Lanka is doing better than India? One assurance you're asking is a very simple assurance. Will the states walk talk the walk? Or walk the talk, whatever you want to call it. And they are not. They are trying to find excuses that it's the last year's level. Now, internationally, the average inflation rate is 7.5. India has effectively managed to keep inflation to 6.4. Now, fuel prices slash what effectively means higher expenditure in other sectors, and production of commodities will lead to higher GDP. Now, whether they accept it or not, the reality is staring. The common man has accepted it. But Congress party living in its ivory tower will not come down. They believe that the Chidambaram figures are all out again, and probably we'll see an article from him on Indian Express backed by a few letters to the editor, but the reality is that they don't open their eyes and they're in the same plight. Today, when the situation of oil, we have to take oil from Russia.
Okay.
And while the European Council was against it, and we stood our grounds and took that oil because it was India first.
Okay. Supriya, yes, 30 seconds, please.
Very frankly, I don't think Tom knows his fuel or his finances. Russian oil contributes less than 3% of our total requirement. He can keep blaming Mr. Chidambaram and his figures. I challenge him to write an article of some repute in any newspaper, but forget about that. Per capita income basis, India has the steepest fuel prices, including domestic gas.
One by one, please, one by one. Okay, I just have to pull away from both of you. I will come back to you. Saugata Roy, TMC MP, is also joining us over the phone line. Let me quickly bring him in. Mr. Roy, Kerala has become the first state government to also announce some cut from the state excise portion. Will the West Bengal government also look at it?
I do not think that is very likely. West Bengal government finances are in a tight position. The government has a lot of relief and welfare programs. Any cut will mean cut of the relief and welfare program. Center has a lot of flexibility because of the large excise they collect. So to put pressure on states like West Bengal would be wrong. Center has only reduced excise on petrol and diesel, but it's too little too late. It's not satisfactory to us. Maybe there will be some relief, but not enough.
But sir, this is the second cut by the centre in the last 6 months. It is saying that it is doing what it can do for given the circumstances.
No, they are not doing what they can do. They are much more flexible. They have much more flexibility. Petrol, diesel are not part of the GST. The excise on petrol and diesel is very high. The state has only sales tax, no excise. And state has only sales tax, and that is not much. So there is no point in putting pressure.
So can I take it, sir, from you that the West Bengal government this time also will not be cutting anything from the state side?
I cannot speak on behalf of the state government. I feel that it's unlikely that state will be able to do this.
Okay. Mr. Roy, I do thank you for joining us. Yes, Supriya, very quickly, if you can respond to what you wanted to say, because one of our guests has still not spoken.
No, I just want to make a very brief point. Between the TMC, the TRS, the Congress, every opposition party can't be lying, right? And every opposition party can't be misleading this nation. The reality is that revenue resources of states are very restricted. Unlike the central government has made a bounty over the last 8 years as far as fuel taxes are concerned by raising special and additional excise duty, money that it keeps only for itself.
Okay.
It's the basic excise which has consistently been reduced from 3 rupees in 2014 that the states were getting. They're now getting 57 paisa on every litre of diesel sold. So let's get real here. It's good to take pot shots at each other, but people are not going to be satisfied because you have simply reduced the price rise that happened over the last 2 months.
Yeah, it's a mitigating effort. It's a mitigating effort. There is no denying that. It's not like prices of fuel have come down drastically.
I'm not as large-hearted as you are. Maybe I'm not as large-hearted as you are. I would have expected a more decisive action.
Okay. Ajay Dua, former Secretary, Ministry of Commerce and Industry. I'm coming to you, sir. The central government with this cut has clearly shown the inclination that they want to, unburden the public to whatever extent they can at this stage, as far as the high fuel prices are concerned and the related inflation is concerned. Do you believe that this will indeed come as some sort of a respite from inflation as well, which was going upwards?
Certainly, Shivani, it would. Because though the finance minister has clarified today, after the Prime Minister's announcement, that will come down to 6.5% to 7% from CPI at the end of May from what it was in April. April had, as we all know, it was 7.69. So that about 1% is the anticipation in the consumer price index falling on account of today's announcement. Whether it is 1% or it is 3/4, but certainly it will come down because prices of fuel determine a whole lot of other prices.
Right.
Transportation and power for which these are feedstock, actually hurt the common man much more than the direct taxes. That is why they are called regressive, as we all know, and the direct taxes are called progressive.
So, sir,
that apart, the
sir,
question
can I take your opinion, since you are a subject matter expert and not a political representative? I want to take your view on the center versus state issue.
Yeah, Shivani, I was coming to that exactly. Yeah. I think earlier, when the Prime Minister had made an appeal to the state chief ministers, when they had come for a physical meeting with him, at that point of time, also the Prime Minister had appealed to them. And I do remember some discussion or so in another channel where I had said that probably it was too early to expect the states to start doing it because the accretion or the addition to the taxes made during the last year and a half or 2 years of pandemic by the center was much more than by the states. But by today's announcement, I think that correction has been made. 6 and 7 rupees reduction, resulting in 9.5 and about 8 rupees of reduction respectively on petrol and diesel. So I think now there is a strong case for the center to ask, which the FM has done today, saying states, all states, it's not just the 19 BJP or NDA ruled states, the other 10 as well must join in, because giving relief to their own citizens and this inflation of 15.1% in the WPI, and unprecedented ever for the last 40 odd years, as well as the CPI, I think the states must now contribute their might, irrespective of their political hue and color, and they can do it. They are not as badly off, because a part of the GST, which has gone up so much, 1.4 trillion per month, also has gone to the states. So it is not that they are not in a position to extend this relief. I would think it certainly, but it may not be 7 rupees or 6 rupees.
It can be less than half of that.
They have a role to play. I would say that categorically.
Okay, towards the end of the show, let me take final comments from all of our guests. Mr. God, coming back to you, you know, for the common public, and earlier we were getting responses from across the country. Many states, we got live responses from the customers who were at petrol pumps. Many of them, without prompting, said that state governments should also do it. You know, the public is also very well aware of this center-state battle. Ultimately, they feel that politics should not hijack what the states can also do. Not as much as the center government, surely, but little bit.
No, sir, certainly, Shivani ji. See, I told you in the beginning, there will be a pressure. Only thing is each state. So suppose we have Telangana state. Every state is not the same. The finances, definitely there is a moral and economic reasons, because decreasing the petrol and diesel does not only affect our bike or a car. It affects the whole gamut of the things in the country, especially for the small and poor and middle class. And also the steel industry and the transport and also construction activity. As you say, that when the petrol and diesel comes out, the income from other sources might increase to offset this. That need to be calculated. Definitely the state will take a call and calculate and take a decision.
That's one promising response that is coming in. And Kerala, as I mentioned, has already announced a cut on their part. We're also joined by Sanjay Jha, political analyst, who's joining us on the show. Sanjay Jha, do you think it's time that state governments must give away, you know, the center versus state fight, the BJP versus non-BJP states fight, and also add to the relief to the customer?
Well, I think there are two aspects to the issue of the oil prices. Number one, the role of the states. But please remember, the role of the states follows the pattern that is set by the center. It is the center that decides how much of oil is to be imported. It is the center that increases excise duties, and then the states more or less follow the same pattern. Now, I don't want to basically get into the debate of whether the states are feeling cheated in terms of GST contributions not coming on time, etc., etc. But the larger issue here is that it's belatedly the government has woken up to the reality that has been told to it for several months. That when you keep increasing prices, you're going to add to your inflation. And I have a feeling that the government is now pressing the panic buttons because it realizes that the wholesale and retail inflation are now really reaching record levels, which is even outside what is the RBI's maximum band.
I've run out of time, Sanjay Jha. Do thank you for joining us, and a big thanks to all of our other guests. We'll have to wait and see how all of the other states also reciprocate. Is there scope for BJP ruled states to also do it once again? And will non-BJP ruled states also follow? That's a wrap on this edition of the news. Stay with us. News and updates will continue after a short break.
Let people continue paying 115 rupees for petrol. I mean, isn't that a fair question?
The king of prime time.
Biggest issue that we don't have a concept of nationhood.
Debate, not dissonance.
It has not been about a particular religious community.
Every side is represented. All get a chance to speak.
You don't want to accept the truth, you'll never solve the problem.
Balanced and fair debates. India tunes in to CNN News 18.